And welcome to a new discussion from the IFTA Connect series, where we share insights and discuss the trends and business opportunities affecting the global film industry today. And my name is Robin Burt. I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Membership of the Independent Film and Television Alliance, who annually hosts the American Film Market in Santa Monica in November. I'm pleased to introduce our guest speaker for today, Schuyler, who is a partner with the law firm Greenberg Glusker, to discuss creating content for alternative digital media. If you have any questions for Schuyler, there will be a Q&A at the end. Click on the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen, and he will get to as many of his questions as he can. And without further ado, over to you, Schuyler.
Okay, thank you very much, Robin. The topic for today is creating content for alternative digital media, and the thesis is that starting with the concept that most people want to create films, and the problem is that most films lose money. And the reason why most films lose money is the law of supply and demand. And it's every year about 700 English language feature length films are made, and every year most of them absolutely don't even get distributed. They chase the film markets, they go to the the awards, they go to the various, they win the San Sebastian something or other, but they don't get sold. And the reason is the law of supply and demand. There's way too much production, way too much production, and not as much distribution. So, and the reason why is I always go back to it's the power of sex. That creating content is sexy, producing is sexy, it's fun, everybody wants to do it. Distributing content, not so much, and therefore you have a smaller channel for distribution, and then you have the law of supply and demand, so that Adam Smith Wealth of Nations takes effect, and therefore the terms are lousy that distributors offer, and films just typically don't do so well. So how do you climb the ladder? How do you change the dynamics? And the answer is you create content for other media. And there's a lot of open ways to do that now. And it achieves two results. One is that you will change the law of supply and demand in your favor by creating content where there's demand for content. And second, more importantly, is that you create credibility, you create a track record, you show that you can do it. So if I was producing, and I represent producer clients, I would look for alternative ways to start. I might still have the goal of doing large theatrical films, but I would clearly be aiming at this point of creating content for alternative media. So that's really why what we're going to discuss today. It's to turn the tables, put you in charge, get paid, get people that want your content instead of the other way around, and there's a lot going on. So with that background, let's talk about what are the other media that you could start with. And the first and most obvious one that I would suggest is TikTok and YouTube. And there are, if you want to establish credibility, if you want to show that you can actually produce something and that you can create compelling content, start small, do short clips, get them on YouTube, get them on TikTok, and your goal should be to try to get 1 million views. And there's incredibly compelling content on YouTube and TikTok and other similar social media that people are establishing themselves. They actually make a living doing this. This is a way to prove it. A way to get financing for it, if you need financing for it, is to think of advertisers. Because advertisers love to get behind content, even if it's short clips, even if it's got their they particularly want their product in it. And the one that I always tell people to take a look at is you go on YouTube and look for the name Kinblock, B-L-O-C-K, and you will see the most sophisticated commercials. They are averaging over 60 million views, and it's a car commercial. What it is various car commercials, but it's a guy racing around in a car, but they are completely and in fact sponsored by advertisers. They are just and it's the best advertising of all. So think long and hard about short content, and then you can, and if you got 1 million views, you can now go to a studio and you can go to a distributor and say, hey, I create compelling content. I've got, whether it's comedy, horror, whatever you can do, and prove that you can do something. All right. And now you've got a track record, and you can call an agent and say, look, I've got 1 million views. I've got this. It's better than just calling and saying, I've got a script. All right. Which is what I hear all the time. Hey, I've got a great script. No, I don't want to hear you got a great script. People want to hear that you've actually done something, got it on the screen, and it's making a difference. So, and again, the ad-supported model for that is fantastic. There's all number of things, and so that's the first one. The second thing to think about is 2D games. That is single player and multiplayer. There is an absolute demand for content for games, and we're going to talk about where that's going. Right now, it's been animation, but you can make it live action, and you can create stories behind it. You can create, you could create, for example, if you were trying to make a theatrical film, you could start with a game and build in, using the technology available these days, make it more realistic, make it more live, make it more, instead of animation, make it live action. And so look to the gaming community. And by the way, that's the gaming community swamps the film industry. I mean, swamps it. So again, they're looking for content. That's a great way to get started. They have obviously the single player games that you play on your own, and then they have the multiplayer games, which is like Fortnite and Minecraft, Halo, Call of Duty. All of those, think what could you do new? What could you do different? How could you, if you've got a script in mind, where could you build a game that starts with it? And we'll talk later about using the various technology to really get yourself ahead. But that's where I would be looking if I was going to create content. That's why I'd say, man, go there. And the big one, then the big one that's coming, and there's two that are really coming big. One first is the 3D games, which is virtual reality, and 3D game. This is where you wear goggles, and there's an enormous demand for this. There's enormous demand for content for virtual reality, and there's two different main types that you should look at. The one is location based, and if you haven't done it, you should go to there's two in Los Angeles, one called The Void, which is in Glendale, and one called Dreamscape, which is in Century City. And they're, walk through location based, and there's more that's coming. And so take a look, look what's happening. Look at their content. Think how you could make content that would work for them, or make content for the next location based virtual reality company. It's just use your imagination. Get into the technology, learn the media, learn the ropes of that, because that's a huge demand for content. The second one is it can be location based, but you can also play it at home. That's where you interactive games where you play with a friend, one or more, and you wear goggles. It's 3D. And the one I always recommend people taking a look at is called Arizona Sunshine. It is a fantastic interactive game where you can go with your friend, and the two of you are immersed, absolutely completely immersed in a virtual reality scenario that goes for hours. And right now, again, it's high-end animation, but you could be doing that live action. You could build into it your script, your ideas, setting a framework for what you want to do later as a film. It's evolving, and it's becoming much more sophisticated. And so creating content for the virtual reality world is going to be, again, you're going to change the law of supply and demand. And then with that, with a big drum roll, the next step up, which you absolutely should be thinking of, is creating content for the metaverse, because it's coming. And the law of supply and demand is completely upside down on the metaverse. I had a client recently offered, he was paid $1 million to talk for a month, for 1 month, about creating content for the metaverse. And I kid you not. So this, you talk about the law. So he was approached by several companies that are so desperate for content for the metaverse that they literally paid my client $1 million just to talk to them for a month. And they're talking about paying him $100 million to actually create the content. And so having watched this firsthand, I can tell you that the law of supply and demand in the metaverse is completely upside down, and it's wide open. Well, I mean, and you should be looking at look at Zuckerberg's YouTube clip on his vision of the metaverse going forward. There's a lot of others, and what it's going to be is what the metaverse will be is you'll be wearing goggles, you'll be watching, you'll be at home generally and looking at your computer, but you'll have goggles on, but it'll be an immersive experience, and anything you can imagine. I mean, anything. You could do scripts, you could do stories, you could do drama, comedy, anything. And it's just anything you want to do. The world is open. And so this is something you've just got to be looking at, thinking, how could I do it? How do I get involved? And again, I'm going to add one thing to the end about the technology on it, which is, I'll give you a hint, which is artificial intelligence. You're going to need to get ahead of the curve on that. So anyway, so again, creating all these alternative media that my typical film producer clients don't even think of, and I so sad. I watch them get dragged around by the streamers in the studios and go to development hell and everyone given lousy terms. Whereas there's this other client doing content for the metaverse, getting $1 million just to talk to them. It's like, what's wrong here? Another source, again, alternative source of digital content these days is NFTs. And the market's definitely taken a hit, but it's still viable. And an NFT is simply a short. It can be a picture or a clip. And if you're creating content, you would want to create a short clip. It can be taken from a film you've done, or it can be from a new clip that you do. And all it is a digital link on the blockchain to a server location, but the digital link is a unique, identified, non-fungible token that gives the owner bragging rights that they are the sole owner of this typically numbered link to a particular content. It can be and they're usually minted in between 1 and 100, but some limited edition of links to digital content. You can think of it as buying a signed lithograph. They typically do a limited print of lithographs, signed by the author, and it's like buying one of those. But they are the owner of the NFT. It's like owning a painting too. They don't own the copyright to the painting. Generally, there's been some pressure on this question. Bored Apes is trying to give people the equivalent of copyright ownership, but in general, the buyer of it doesn't own the copyright. So you as the creator of the NFT still own the content. You still own the copyright. You're allowed to go off and make a derivative work based on it, make ultimately a film, a series, whatever you want. So you still control that content. But it is, and I've seen people raise in financing for an entire film, selling NFTs. There was there was one that was going to be an animation film, feature length, and what they did is they created the characters up front, and they created the characters and then sold NFTs on the characters and raised enough money to entirely make the film. And they may actually make more money selling the NFTs than they make selling the film, but it was rather successful. And Lionsgate is doing one for a live action film, and all the studios are looking at their libraries and asking themselves, what can we take, if, like, for example, if you've got an existing film, take clips from that film and put them sell them as an NFT. There are some tricks with that for existing content. If you use the image of a person from the film or any image of a person, you're going to need their consent. Even if they were paid to be in the film, you're going to have to go back and separately pay them for to use their image in an NFT. If there's music, you're going to need to pay for that. The guilds require payments of residuals to the director and the writer. So if it was a WGA, DGA production that you're taking a clip from. As a footnote on this, I get asked all the time, who owns NFT rights to existing films? And my analysis is that it falls in the definition of clip rights. And so the first question is, who owns clip rights? And sometimes that's not clear. And then the question is, does it fall under ancillary rights? Does it fall under derivative works? So there's going to be a lot of fights and litigation over who owns NFT rights to existing films, because you might have somebody that owns the film and somebody owns distribution rights to certain characters of the rights, certain class, television ancillary mediums, and they'll be arguing about whether it falls under that. But it's again, just think of it as an alternative media for creating digital content. You could start small and you could build it out, and NFTs can be quite long. They don't have to be very short, but that's how they're typically pretty short content, but they could be much longer. The next thing I want to talk about it's really, really important is artificial intelligence. You need to get ahead of the curve in terms of harnessing artificial intelligence to help you create content. You have no idea what's coming, all right? And I'm going to tell you that it's not long before entire films are made using artificial intelligence. All you have to, if you go study this, you will see that they're already writing books. They are writing sequels to existing works like Game of Thrones. The artificial intelligence is creating sequels to that on the book series. They have creating choreography. They are creating music. They just won an award at the European Music Festival. They are creating compelling visual content, and it is not long, gang, before they put it all together and start creating films. And there are already shorts on YouTube. If you go look up artificial intelligence on YouTube, you'll find content that is created, and it's coming. And whoever harnesses that is going to control the future. Because artificial intelligence won't take over your job. It's whoever has the ability to use it that can will be able to create unbelievable content, and for all this digital media, all the way back to everything I've said, whether it's shorts, whether it's games, whether it's interactive, metaverse, everything. And so that is going to be very, very important. One of the key issues with artificial intelligence is who owns the content that is created, and who is the author of the work. And this is going to be important for a number of reasons. One, obviously, ownership and who controls distribution rights. It's also going to be important for discussing who is sued. And so here's some alternatives. Who is it? It could be the person that wrote the software for the artificial intelligence, that maybe they're the author. Maybe it's a person that uploads the content, because the way it works is you in all cases, you upload tons of content, and the computer then figures out what to do next. So it could be that person who loads the content. Maybe it's the person that distributes the content, that acquires the resulting content and distributes it. Or maybe it's a person that owns the computer. And these could all be different people. So you could have somebody writing the software, someone owning the computer, someone uploading, and then someone who distributes. And who will be the owner of derivative works? Who's the author? By the way, on this issue, the patent office has refused issuing a patent that was claimed that it was created by artificial intelligence. They said, no, we need a person. And the Copyright Office has done the same. You cannot go to the Copyright Office and say the author is artificial intelligence. It's got to be a person. So you're going to have to figure out who of those 4 people or 4 companies is the author. And the next thing is who gets sued. And we'll talk about the claims that people can make, but if there's infringement, if there's copyright infringement, trademark, right of publicity, defamation, who gets sued? Is it which of those 4 people is the author or owner as the defendant in a case? And so this is all going to be very, very important when it comes to artificial intelligence. Another fun issue that's going to come up on that side is how will the guilds deal with this? Because what if you've got a studio that starts creating content with artificial intelligence without using DGA or without using DGA directors or WGA writers, but they uploaded, what they did is they took all the films that were uploaded that were written by WGA writers and directed by DGA directors. You upload all this content, then the computer spits out a new film, and the question will be whether the guilds get rather upset and say, wait, you didn't pay minimums to somebody, and or you know, how exactly will they react? Maybe they'll have to, you know, they will obviously want their pound of flesh. They will want some pension and health for their members or something. So I think that is going to be an interesting issue going forward. I want to tell you, for all of this, all of these issues, I want to warn you about various legal issues that you need to look out for that come as a result of creating content for a digital world. And particularly if you are amalgamating content, particularly if you are using pre-existing content or changing it in some way. But so let me just give you a very quick course on some legal issues that you need to think about. One is copyright. And copyright is you're not, the magic wording is you're not allowed to copy the expression of a prior work, but you are allowed to use the idea. And so if you are doing a film or a project, you have to be careful not to use, quote, the expression of a prior work, which means the exact content, the way it's worded, if it's written, but you're allowed to use the idea. One issue that comes up, the courts, what the courts kind of do, what they do is they rule with their heart, and they look at the original work and they look at what you did and they say, do I think they're too close? And if they're too close, you're in trouble, and the court's going to say you violated the copyright of the first work. And if they think it's okay, they will say the second work is, quote, transformative. And so that's the magic word that you'll hear is if you did something for the metaverse, if you did something for an NFT, whatever, is it transformative of some prior work, in which case you're okay? Or is it too close to the original, in which case you're not? One of the interesting issues on this is artificial intelligence, because you load up all this content into the computer and it creates new content based on whatever you uploaded. And it's hard to say that a computer has ideas. So it's hard to say that the computer created new content based on the idea as opposed to the expression. And so that'll be an interesting copyright case when whoever's content was uploaded finds its way into the new work. And it's the same if you create work for metaverse, YouTube, whatever. If you're using prior work and you're transforming it somehow, that'll be a big issue. One of the defenses on a copyright claim is fair use, and fair use is that, well, bottom line is what a court thinks is fair. They use a bunch of factors, but the truth is, what is fair? And if you want to keep your eye on a case that just is going up to the US Supreme Court about Andy Warhol, he did a paint in one of his classic paintings of the artist Prince, and the estate of Prince sued and won at the Second Circuit in New York. That's going up to the Supreme Court, and you're going to see a very important decision on fair use coming up next, probably by the end of this year. Excuse me. So that's, another, that's issue one. Second issue I want you to be aware of is trademark. And many people run around and try to expunge all references to Coca-Cola or a car or whatever in your work. You don't need to do that. You do not need to eliminate all references to products or goods or services in whatever you create. The question is, would a reasonable consumer watching your work be confused as to the sponsorship or source of your work? Would they think that Coca-Cola created your film? Or if you have a Mercedes driving across the screen, would they think that Mercedes sponsored your work or created it? And in almost across the board, the answer is no. No reasonable consumer, because they see a Coke can or they see a Mercedes in your film. So you don't need to expunge all products from your work. However, what's now happening this is why I want to warn you, in the NFTs in particular, and in the metaverse in particular, people are beginning to sell content that has trademarks in it that is like Birkin bags I've seen, and Nike shoes, and people are selling like Nike shoes in the metaverse, and they are putting it Nike whatever on an NFT. That is not good. That to me crosses the line and implies that Nike or Birkin bag sponsored that NFT or made it, or produced it. And so and you're using the good, and on the in the metaverse in particular, I really think it's when you let people use, a Ferrari car or a Birkin bag or whatever, that's really pushing it. That really is pushing it. Particularly if it's being sold for virtual currency or even actual currency. That there's been a number of suits on this, and so please be aware of the trademark. But I want to contrast that with just if you're using, Coca-Cola Birkin bag or somebody's, it just crosses the screen. It's in a shot. That's okay, because I always tell, I have this all the time where I have to do clearances on films, and there's these groups that just delete everything, and you don't need to delete everything. All right, that's just, you don't have to do that. Next thing to look out for, particularly if you are using existing clips from anything, is right of publicity. And you have to be careful. You have to be very careful that you don't use somebody's name like you. The way you should think of it is, if you use anybody's name, likeness, or image, there is a prima facie case that they have a right of publicity claim, and you need a defense, and you need to be able to say and obviously one defense is they agreed to it. Okay, you paid them, that's fine. The big one that most people rely on is First Amendment, public interest. If it's factual and it's something of public interest, and that is a huge exception to the right of publicity. And I get this all the time. You don't need to pay somebody to use public factual information. If you read a book and you read an article about somebody and it's factual, by definition, that is public interest. If somebody's written an article about it and somebody's written a book about it, that's public interest. And you do not have to go run around and pay the author of the article and the author of the book to use to make a story about whoever they talked about and the facts that were in that article or in that book. And I get this all the time. And I'm constantly telling my clients, you don't need to pay for that. However, you just need to look out for copyright, because you can't copy the expression. You can't track the story. If the book has a particular arc, you can't track that arc. So that's the only thing you have to look out for. It's copyright, not right of publicity. And this comes up all the time in the metaverse. And so imagine what's coming. Okay, so now we put it together. I can easily, it's, by the way, it's being done all the time. I can create a deep fake of Tom Cruise or Brad Pitt. And more importantly, I can mesh them, and I can create one person that's both of them. And I can create and by the way, AI will do that without telling it to. That's what it'll do. And so then you have the question of the right of publicity claim by the underlying actors. In that case, let's assume it's a perfect amalgamation of two actors. Will they both be, if they want to bring a right of publicity claim, will both be able to bring it? Will neither be able to bring it? What if you do three actors? Maybe it's now no one can, because it doesn't look exactly like anybody. This is going to be a big issue. It's going to be a big issue. Now, clearly, if you're just using if you go and take somebody's name and image and put it on your screen, you're in trouble if you haven't changed it. But the issue will become if you change it, okay? If you change it, and that if you transform it. And again, we'll come back. They use that same magic wording, transformative. If it's transformative, it's probably going to be allowed. And the question is, how much transformed does it have to be? So it is particularly going to come up in light of publicity. It's going to be less so if it's just a direct. You just took a clip. That'll be obvious. Other legal issues to be aware of is claims, in particular where you can create, where it's going in the metaverse and digital games, is whenever it's interactive, you're going to have a number of problems that you just need to be aware of. And one is going to be claims by people that get hurt or offended or something and they sue the content creator. This is going to where AI becomes the issue of who's the author. So whether someone's bringing an infringement claim or a defamation claim, or I got hurt claim because I was playing virtual reality and I climbed off and I fell off the stairs, or I fell out my window because I had these goggles on. That's going to happen. There's going to be lawsuits about that, and I already have been. And then the second piece that's interesting is that when you will have claims by players against other players, and where this has happened is that in particular there's an interactive virtual reality game with avatars, and one avatar sexually attacked the other avatar, and the woman that was her avatar was attacked was seriously emotionally distressed and sued and won. And so you're going to have some very in the Brave New World, where it's in particular in the metaverse. You're going to see this in the metaverse. You're going to have claims by people against people for things that they could have made a claim for in the real world, and it might be assault, battery, sexual harassment, defamation, any number of claims that you're going to have claims by users against users. And so that's going to be, that'll just be an interesting thing. So, again, those are kind of the key issues that are going to come up: copyright, trademark, right of publicity, defamation. Let's talk about defamation, just because of the Amber Heard, Johnny Depp case. Defamation. you do have to be careful. If I get this all the time, what if I take a true story and I'm going to make it a meta, I'm going to use an interactive game or do something, but part of it will be fictionalized, or I'm just going to make a film, by the way. Now, some part of it will be fictionalized. Do I have a problem? And the answer is, yeah, you might have even if you start with facts, but you're going to change it. You obviously now are going to run into a potential claim for defamation because you are making a statement that purports to be factual, that is defamatory, and that is false. And those are kind of the four kind of key elements. And what companies have found a way around that by saying that it is a fictionalized version of true facts. So, and even in the, people have even put that in the end credit. I would recommend putting it in the front. So if you if you take a true story and you're somehow, fictionalizing it, I would put a disclaimer right in front that this is a fictionalized version to avoid a claim of defamation. And if there's any risk that it's, obviously if it's defamatory, unless you have a release from the person, like for example, Borat not Borat, there was a guy, all these goofballs that appear in these parodies sign releases, and was this guy named I forget his name, Moore in Alabama, was ridiculed as a pedophile, and he signed a release that permitted it. So obviously, if you do that, then you're going to be okay. So that's it. That's my general thesis for the Brave New World. And again, just to summarize, get on the other side of the law of supply and demand. Think about creating content for alternative uses. Get paid better, that's for sure. Create credibility, create a track record. Then you can call lawyers and agents and say, look what I did. By the way, if you get 1 million views on YouTube, you're going to get 50. You can get up to $50,000. So you can make a living doing this, So and that's kind of the going rate. If you can, people make a fantastic living creating content for YouTube. 50 grand for 1 million views, that's not bad. So anyway, that's the future. And with that, let's do and now a note from our sponsor. Okay, so let me give you just a few things. If you're interested in any of this, several sources to follow up on. Number one is I write a Forbes blog, Forbes article every month. I have a Forbes article. If you go on Google and go Schuyler Moore Forbes, you will find a whole series of articles I've written forever on every topic in the world, including everything I just talked about: artificial intelligence, NFTs, metaverse, virtual reality. You'll find an article on all of that. Second thing is, if you're interested in a course, I taught at the UCLA Law School and the UCLA Business School and USC Law School, and I took that course and I put it online on YouTube. I have a channel, and it's under my name, Sky Moore, as opposed to Schuyler Moore. But so if you go on YouTube and you go Sky, S-K-Y, Moore, attorney, because there's a very famous football player, unfortunately, but S-K-Y-E or something. But if you go Sky Moore on YouTube, attorney, you'll find my channel, and it's got an entire course that I taught at UCLA Law School and the Business School, and it covers everything in the film industry. It's called the film industry something or other. Third, if you're if you're interested in the business side, you should go on Amazon and buy my book. It's not expensive at all. It's cheap. It's The Biz, and it's the basic business, legal, and financial aspects of the film industry. And it'll teach you everything you need to know about the film industry, including the topics that we talked about today. And finally, if you're interested in I send out a newsletter, and if you pop me an email that just says, all you need to do is say add, the word add, and I will add you to my newsletter. And my email address is very easy. It's smoore, M-O-O-R-E, at GG, as in good, ggfirm.com. So smoore at ggfirm.com. Just put the word, just write add, and I'll add you to the newsletter. And so you can get future stuff. But again, if you're, for more details, really I've got very extensive articles on Forbes on all of these topics. And so with that pitch from our sponsor, I will be glad to answer questions as long as you want. And so I'm going to now go up and I'm going to pull up Q&A. And I see a nice comment from I was a student of yours at UCLA in Law 2000. That's, yes, that was one of my first years, if I remember. Very nice. So it's just somebody sending a nice note that is a student, and I say thank you. I've got a few students out there, and it's always a pleasure to hear from them. And by the way, anybody, you can always send me a question. I love hearing questions because it keeps me in tune with what's happening. So to former students, I actually recognize the name. Nice to see you. Okay, Lawrence. All right, next. How do you protect the copyright to your work on TikTok or YouTube? As all content on these platforms can be downloaded, copied, and used. You own the copyright to it. Yes, people can you're right, people can download it, but you will at least own once you're on TikTok or YouTube, anybody can use it and copy it, but you will continue to own the derivative rights. And so if you're building this as a way to, you do a short, and then later on you want to do a longer version, you will retain the rights to derivative works that are based on the content that you create, even if your content is that content, that short, is out to the world. But the whole point of this is to get traction for the next work, to build, to work your way up. Okay. Next, 3D is expensive as it requires visual effects skills. How does one create for this industry? Storytelling is sorely needed here. It is. You go to the companies and you say, all you do is go to all the 3D companies and say, I have a vision, I have a story, I want to create live action, I have this idea and that idea. You go to the people that need the content, obviously, and the companies that are creating virtual reality, again, location-based, at home, using the goggles. This is huge. And you say, you're not going to just go and create content on your own without some support, but go to them and say, I have an idea. I have clients that are getting paid a lot for doing this, okay? They're getting paid a lot. It's a little bit crazy. Okay, not a question, but the void is closed. Oh, that's sad to hear. I loved the void when it was open. So hopefully the dreamscape is still open, so that'll be the good news. That's really sad about the void. I love that a lot. How do we find opportunities to do the work for the metaverse? Boy, go to the metaverse companies. I'm getting approached by it, so I know who's out. There's a lot of hedge funds. There's a lot of investment companies. Obviously, all the Facebooks of the world, the Googles, all the big tech companies. But just go on Google, search metaverse. I will tell you, there are a number of investment companies that are actually going to either back it, create their own. It's endless. I mean, it's endless. Would augmented reality be more profitable than virtual reality? Yeah, I don't think so. It's a good question. I'm for all of it. So augmented reality, the problem that it's harder to create content for augmented reality. It's not as, because it's just not as much fun. I would go for virtual reality, and in my experience, there's much more demand. What I've seen is there's much more demand for virtual reality. Who buys NFTs? You have to have a community. You have to have a solid community already for this to work. No, that people, the market's down. The market's way down for NFTs, but I mean, I've seen people sell just absolutely out of the box no built community. Again, this example I gave of an animation company created the character, sold the NFTs, and financed the entire film. So you can start from scratch. You can start from scratch with that. What is the name of the film? I forget. I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the film. You can find it on. Just go on Google. Because it was an animated. The one I talked about was an animated film. You can easily find it on Google. You can also go Lionsgate, search Lionsgate NFTs, and you'll find what they're doing too. I forget who their actor was, but you can find that. How much does it range to hire an entertainment attorney? There's two types of entertainment attorneys. Some work on spec, that is on a percentage. They typically represent talent. For producers, most entertainment lawyers do not represent producers on spec. That is for a 5%. They typically, want to get paid by the hour, and it depends. Short answer is depends on the attorney, what their hourly rate is. Hourly rates go from $300 on up. I'm on the up, and some require retainers. We require retainer, significant retainer. So just the short answer, it depends on the attorney. Maybe the answer is to sue lies in whoever made the profit. Yeah, that's this comment is sue on artificial intelligence, sue who made the profit. I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. I think you have to look for the author. Who's the author? Who created the work? In most cases, it's pretty obvious. In some cases, it's not. So that artificial intelligence is going to be hard to figure out who the author of the work is. They're definitely teaching AI with copyrighted materials. That is correct. That is absolutely correct. The best solution is to sell or license the software to the copyright owners to create their own AI derivatives. So guilds will have zero right to do that. Well, this goes to our core question. Yes, you upload to an AI copyrighted materials, then it spits out something supposedly new, but it's clearly based on whatever you uploaded, that's for sure. And if I was an owner of that content, I might try to get a class action of everybody that's material was uploaded. And if I'm a guild, I'm going to be annoyed. And if people are sidestepping my talent, I'm going to try to either stop it if I'm a guild. I'm going to say you can't do AI. I mean, you might say to a studio, you can't create. We're not going to let you create films that don't have a WGA writer and a DGA director. Period. You're just not allowed to do that. You're a signature to the guild, and you're just not allowed to do that. That is the equivalent of hiring a non-WGA writer, which they're not allowed to do. So that's if I'm a guild, that's going to be my opening bid. Next. Isn't the AI copyright question skipping over the possibility that it might not be copyrightable? Similar to speech? No, no. The answer is, well, someone's suggesting that there's no author and it falls into the public domain. Let me just read this quickly. I don't accept that. If AI creates content, it is not just going to fall into the public domain. There's no way. Somebody is going to stand up and say, by God, I own this. And I am the author of it. And somebody, it won't just fall. No, the short answer is it's not going to fall into the public domain. One of those people, either the software writer, developer, the owner of the content that bought it once it comes out. I do not think, and I just don't think it's going to go out into the public domain. If you interview a medical doctor for factual medical information, do you need to pay a doctor? Well, that's up to the doctor. I'm assuming I'm assuming this question is if you record the interview of a medical doctor, well, that would be implied consent. If you go into a doctor and ask them questions and you have a video recording it, that will be a matter of implied consent. They will obviously, the question is the scope of that implied consent. they should be asking, what are you going to do with this? And you should be telling them. So that's an odd one. Usually there'll be a written agreement. You don't want to rely on implied consent. You want a written consent that says exactly what you can do with whatever you do. If you take a photograph that you don't own and use AI to translate it into illustration, have you transformed it enough to avoid violating copyright? This is a wonderful question. Let's go to the heart of this question. So what someone is proposing is you take a photograph and you transform it into basically animation or an illustration. Famous California case about someone that took the images of the Three Stooges and did a charcoal drawing and put it on T-shirts. And it went up to the California Supreme Court. And it's exactly this question, by the way. It's exactly this question. Because they took a photograph of the Three Stooges. They then did a charcoal illustration, put it on a T-shirt, went up to the Supreme Court. And the California Supreme Court said, it's not transformative. It's too good. It's too close. And in contrast, if I had done the charcoal drawing, it would have been a mess. And mine would have been protected because it would have definitely been transformative. It would not have remotely looked like the Three Stooges. And the short answer to this question, and it's key to everybody, is the truth. What's going on in court is that courts rule with their heart. And they simply say, they take the two works. Are they too close? And if they are too close, then the wording that they will use is, oh, it's a derivative work. It's substantially similar to this original. It's not transformative and it's not fair use. Those are the words. If they rule with their heart and they say, we think that's too far apart, then the words they will use is, it's not a derivative work, or they'll say it's fair use, it's transformative. Those are the buzzwords that the courts will use. But the courts lie, and they all pretend that they do this analysis of whether it's transformative, but the truth is it's the other way around. They rule with their heart, and then they come up with buzzwords to put in their opinion. And wait for the Andy Warhol Supreme Court decision. They will absolutely do that. I guarantee you, they will rule with their heart, and then they'll put words onto the opinion. Oculus creates a barrier that you sign off on before you start playing, almost to protect them. Would that be enough to protect your rights to fight against bogus claims? First of all, even if the company has you waive a claim against the company, that I get. That can work if you have to click affirmatively that you accept the terms, as opposed to the terms are buried somewhere. And it doesn't stop you making a claim from other players on the work, so that your waiver is against Oculus, not against other people that are playing. But yeah, the waivers can work if they're carefully worded and they require you to click on affirmatively and not just say, oh, and you're subject to these terms. Do dead people have a right of publicity? Short answer is it depends. So the question to me is, do dead people have a right of publicity? The answer is yes. Depends on the state, and it may depend on, there's an open issue of, there is a conflict between, is it the state of residence or is it the state of where you bring the suit and where the work is exploited? California says that deceased people do not have a right of publicity with respect to their images used in entertainment works. But that's only within California, and and other states do different things. So the short answer is yes. You have to assume that the estate has a right of publicity. And by the way, this is going on all the time. Marilyn Monroe, Elvis, they're actively suing all the time to protect. And the estate of the state of a number of celebrities is suing over their right of publicity. Next, I used to make content for YouTube using royalty-free music that I paid for. Be careful. Years later, I got a notification from YouTube and other creators filing claims that the music was theirs. I'm worried that if I make clips for TikTok, similar problems will arise. Yes, be careful of royalty-free music. In particular, you have to read the terms of the some of the music is free only if you use it for personal use, not if you put it on a public media or social media. You have to read the terms of use very clearly. And don't get fooled. There's a lot of quote free photos and music, but it's only free for personal use, not for use on any social media. You have to be careful on reading the terms. Can I provide a link to example NFTs? I don't buy NFTs, so I don't, but look, you can just go on, if you're looking for an example NFT, go on Google and search Bored Ape. And it's the most ridiculous, those are the most ridiculous NFTs of all time. But you can find examples of NFTs online all you want. What you'll find are the visual images. You won't own the NFT, but you can see who's buying them, and what they're buying is again an identified non-fungible token that is a link to that content. That is what is happening. Do you need releases from actors that have deceased? Yes. Again, this is that's the rule that I just talked about. It depends on the state. Depends on the state. What elements should we watch out for when creating alternative content using history books? Since everything in history books is factual, would you have a problem creating this type of content? I absolutely would. Short answer is you do not need the consent of anybody that's of anything that's a factual work, unless you're really tracking the exact story arc that is in that history book. If it has some unique elements in it that the way it's told, as opposed to the facts, but you do not need consent for facts. And I have a Forbes article on this. You could go Schuyler Moore, Forbes, why are you paying for factual information? And you'll find my article that hammers this, because I'm so tired of, I did the film Snowden with Oliver Stone, and people running around trying to buy articles from everybody that had written about Snowden. I said, stop, you don't need to do that. It's public, it's public. We did get Snowden on screen, and that's obviously different. We paid him, but you don't need all these stupid articles. What is your feeling about creating audio play podcasts? I love podcasts. Somebody's asking, look, this seminar I'm talking about, obviously audio visual content. I'm a big fan of podcasts. I'm an absolute big fan of that. If you can do that, but most people here are into doing visual. May you send the link of the book. The book, The Biz, it's on Amazon. Just go on Amazon, The Biz, Schuyler Moore, and you'll find it. Right? It's very, very easy to find. We are a short form company, have been in this space for a decade. Good. Here's a company that makes sense. It is incredibly hard to find these short form projects for YouTube, especially games and VR. Yeah, we have exhausted our advertisers. How do you recommend finding new financing outside advertisers? Boy, I'd use advertisers. I would also get behind, because that's what I would start, or production companies that, look, there's a lot, just look at the popular YouTube videos. There's so many comedies, music, dancing, all kind of stuff. So I would just be more creative. Think about, look at what's working. Look at the Kin Block, 60 million views. What is the best place to sell your NFTs? I think there's a number of markets for selling NFTs. One is called OpenSea. I think OpenSea is the biggest marketplace for selling NFTs. I want to write a book about characters in a televised criminal trial. Oh, great! If it's a televised criminal trial, it's fair game. That's by definition, it's public interest. It's First Amendment, and you can copyright a well, don't use, if you're writing a book about a televised criminal trial, have at it. No, you do not need anybody's consent to do that. Absolutely, have at it. Read email address again. My email address is smore@ggfirm.com. Someone wrote, I bought your book. Excellent, exclamation mark. I love you. By the way, I've got a lot of, the book is really written to be ground zero from, it's an entire course. And you need it. If you're in the film industry, you need to know the business side, not just the creative side. I met you during the Chinese gold mine. Man, things have changed. Does China still do business with Hollywood? Short answer is no. I predicted this exactly what happened. I represented a lot of the Chinese companies, and I could tell immediately what they were doing. What they were doing is trying to get US expertise to go back to China and make China films. And they're trying to, they want soft power. They want to outdo Hollywood. And that's what they're trying to do. And so, no, the short answer is they don't do business with Hollywood anymore. They've retreated. They're no more investing. But boy, I wrote a Forbes article on what they were going to do, and I pegged it. They were not here to help Hollywood. They were here to wipe out Hollywood, and that's their goal. There's no question. I use Meta and paid content on Facebook. If you use audio and add them, is that okay? I don't really understand that question. I use Meta. Sorry, don't understand that question. What did I say is the budget range for films made for TikTok and YouTube? There's no, that could be financed with advertising. There's no budget range. The budget range could be zero if you make it in your, there's people that, the most popular one is some kid that reviews toys, and he's making millions and millions of dollars. He just does it at home playing with toys. And then you've got all the way up to the Ken Block things, which must cost millions, because if you watch those ones, they're just incredible. These cars racing around cities, they're insane. We are an independent production. We are the only independent production ever to be recommended for Primetime Emmy short docs. Great, that got us into the doors with agents, but nothing came of it. Oh, come on. What do you recommend to get agents' attention? Views, credibility, track record. Okay, so maybe it's not enough to just be nominated for a Primetime Emmy for a short form doc. How many views did you get? How much money did you, what did you do with it? That should have worked. All you need, what you need is what I would also tell everybody, and I always tell, is partner with existing producers where agents will take their calls. So that's the first thing I tell everybody. Just partner with somebody that's got street cred, and if you don't have it, partner with someone that does, because the question is, will agents take your calls? If you're filming a real life blog where you interact with people on the street, do you need releases or contracts with everyone you interact with, or is everyone face visible? How strict should this be? These are great. So you go on, you see a lot of this where you go on the real life and you talk to people. My view is that if you're interviewing somebody and you've got the video there, that's implied consent. I don't think that you need something written. I believe that you're free to do it. That's implied consent. They're in public. They know you're videoing, but it's different if they don't know you're videoing. And there's no implied consent. So I don't mind. And if people are walking in the background or they're just partially visible, that's fine. That you don't need their consent. They're in public, they're walking around, as long as you're not focused on them and following them without them knowing. But if you're interviewing somebody and they know you're videoing, you should be fine. And there's a lot of, great, there's hilarious interviews with Trump supporters that do exactly that. How about sports content for the metaverse? Absolutely. Does it exist? Absolutely. Boy, sports content, that's going to be huge. That's, branded, you can imagine NBA, that's going to be enormous. So yes, but it's going to need to, if it's branded NBA, whatever, it's going to be obviously another thing that can be in the metaverse is extreme sports. You can imagine Red Bull getting in there in a big way, just like they have on all other media. So absolutely, sports is going to be huge. I want to write a book about a celebrity using public information. I know I can use the information. However, do I need their permission to use a picture of that celebrity and their name in connection with the book? You're going to need the consent of whoever owns the copyright. You're going to need the consent of whoever owns the copyright to the picture. You will not need the consent of the celebrity because of First Amendment public interest. This is how all the trades get away with putting all the actors' names and pictures in the trades. You see it every day. And how TMZ, whatever, National Enquirer, First Amendment, celebrities, unfortunately for them, is just free game. And as long as you're doing factual information, you can put their picture, you can do whatever. And it's, again, your only risk is going to be if you fictionalize it. You don't want to claim for defamation. So if you fictionalize it, you're going to have to put in, this was fictionalized. How do you find advertiser contact for sponsorship? You knock on doors. I'm the clients that are great at this. Don't give up, don't give up. I got Adidas to finance a 3-picture trilogy of soccer. My client just went to the top. They somehow got to the president. They did it. I've got a big, I don't want to say the name, but a big consumer product company right now sponsoring a film. Client just went to them and knocked on the doors. It's knocking on doors, and it's not knocking on the there's these advertising agencies. You don't go there because they don't want you at all. You go to the top executives at the company and pitch the idea to them. It's because it's obviously thinking outside the box. The advertising companies, the standard marketing companies don't want you around at all. So that's same. Somebody asked the same question. How do you think of making movies in the form of NFTs? Nah, I don't think so. Are there? Okay, can you sell an entire movie as an NFT? I don't think that's going to sell. I don't think that's going to work. NFTs everyone thinks of them as short form. You could do it with a long form, but short answer is I don't think it will work to sell the entire movie as an NFT. I don't think there'll be enough bang for the buck. Although, then they got that animation company that raised the entire budget from selling short clips. Okay, next. VR companies are interested in huge IP and big talent. Well, what other avenues do you recommend for financing VR? Look, there's so much VR happening, and then VR, in particular in the metaverse. I've been approached by companies I would have never expected. They're hedge funds, they're investment companies, and they're looking to get into this business, and they're paying my clients a lot of money to do this. So knock on doors, ask around, go on the internet. Who's into it? And the short answer is everybody. All the funds are now into it. That's for sure. Somebody asked who made my client the $100 million offer. It was a big investment hedge fund. It was not a studio. It was not an advertiser. It is a new hedge fund that wants to create their own metaverse. And they cannot be, and there were 2 of them. There's 2 of them that are partnering, but given that, the others must be as well. So I would have thought, all the big hedge funds that are in media, I would have thought, Apollo, Blackstone, just go down the list. Forest Road, look around. What do I think of making movies? No, that same question. Movies as an NFT. I don't think that will work. Is there a resource to learn how to write content for the metaverse? That's the beauty, is that there is no immediate resource. It's going to be who gets on, who thinks it through, who figures it out, how, you know, they're like, it's going to obviously be different cameras and different type of approach to it, but get on the ground, figure it out. There'll be, I don't know if there'll be courses, probably there'll be courses. I would bet all the film schools, if they're smart, all the film schools will now start getting into this. And I would bet private companies too start doing it. Can I expand on alternative marketing? Because most of the time the content is a lot of viewers, but the content doesn't have a message in the audience, message to the audience. Well, just look, that's up to you. You create the content, you create the compelling story. So that's your job. How to approach executives when you don't have an agent? Is the email still okay? Man, I don't know how my clients do it, but I've got clients that just don't give up. I got terminators. I mean, they show up. They show up with Omar Gaddafi as the leader of Libya. They show up with the president of Nike, of Adidas. They show up with the president of a huge commercial product. They just bang on doors. They don't stop. I don't know. I can't tell. I don't know the answer to this question. How do you get to the executives? Go ask my clients. Somehow, God bless them. The ones that never give up, they figure out how to do it. It takes ad money to get your content to 1 million views. No, it doesn't. Short answer is no, it doesn't. How do you recommend it? It doesn't take ad money to get 1 million views. If you get, there's people that have got 1 million views just creating a little content at home in their own room. So ad money doesn't hurt, but you don't absolutely need it. I'm developing a World War II feature. Sorry, I'm developing a World War II movie. Do I have to acquire the rights for military personalities? No. Roosevelt, blah, blah, blah. No. First Amendment, public interest, have at it. You don't need anybody's consent. You're doing a military film. You don't need anybody. That's war is public interest. Have at it. Can I name a short film that was completely made by AI? Yeah, I can. Just go. All you got to do is go on YouTube and search AI, artificial, and you will find a bunch of films that were created, and they will blow your mind. Okay, I don't know the names, but I certainly know how to spell AI. It's a capital A, capital I. You'll find it. As a lawyer trying to get into this area of law, what is some advice I would give? I just gave the advice. My book, the YouTube course, the Forbes articles, you read all that, you're up to speed. I've noticed a trend in the film projects in crypto where they're offering a free token now instead of asking for money up front. What happened to understand behind the tactic? Look out for, in the crypto space, these tokens. What I'm interpreting this as a free. I know exactly what they're talking about. There's a lot of companies that are offering fungible tokens. They're doing coin offerings and they're sending out free coins. And the reason that they're doing that is to prime the market to hoping the price will go up. That is a securities offering. This SEC is now all over this question. The reason they're doing it is to hopefully create the next Bitcoin, Ethereum, and I think it's all nonsense. And I'm hoping the SEC will stop it. These coin offerings have got to stop. And they're trying to find a loophole through the securities laws. I don't think they will. I think that the securities laws are going to shut them down. But that's why they're doing that. What do I think of the future of narrative podcasts? I'm all over it. Oh man, podcasts. I'm. This is not a podcast seminar, but boy, am I a big fan of. I'm a big fan of podcasts. How much do I feel? I've got a few more minutes. Don't keep going. How much do you feel that the current and future state of the independent film is propped up in the past formula of indie film finance? propped up by the past formula. I think the past, I think the past financing thing for independent films is over, where you go to Cannes and the film markets and you pre-sell on a country by country basis. I think that party is completely over. I think the new world is streaming. I think the new world is that you pre-sell to a streamer. And I gave a whole seminar on this. I've now given an entire seminar on this topic. If you go on to IFTA, IFTA has the webinar, you can listen to it. They've got a recording of it. So the short answer is, if you want to hear the state of play on financing, go to the IFTA website and they have the prior seminar I gave a month ago. We had a company that wanted to do deep fakes for changing an online learning host dialogue. The manager of talent went nuts, as the contract said they had all the rights to do everything with the media. So I'm interpreting this question as somebody saying I really don't understand the question. The manager and the talent went nuts, of course. Oh, so somebody went to talent and said, hey, can we do a deep fake with you? And the talent went nuts. Well, of course they went nuts. So yeah, deep fake, deep fake, if you take, is not factual, and therefore it's not protected by the First Amendment. However, if you say it's fictionalized, you may be okay, but you might be running into a right of publicity claim if you use the image of the person and you're fictionalizing it. But the person might not care if you're not defamatory. We have a very famous celebrity that does not mind deep fakes as long as they are not defamatory. This guy's view is that it's all publicity is good publicity, and he doesn't mind. He also doesn't want to fight First Amendment. You can make, if you use the person's image and you say it's fictionalized, you might get away with it on the First Amendment. Can you expand on transformative? Can you publish? With apology, I can't expand on transformative because the truth is, courts rule with their heart and then they put the word on there. That nobody can describe what is transformative. It is, the courts always pretend to describe it, and it's always a lie. The courts are fooling themselves and they're fooling everybody else. No, there is no definition of transformative. It is the courts rule with their heart, and then they come up with words. You can also go look, by the way, at the Google versus, there was a Supreme Court case, wasn't versus a computer company, and Google copied all this software, and the court, it was a verbatim copying of the software, and the Supreme Court held it was transformative, and it wasn't transformative at all, by the way, at all. But the court held it was because they ruled with their heart. They liked what Google was doing, and so they said it was okay. So that transformative is a buzzword that courts tack on at the end of the decision. What if AI starts to create its own content without a human author? Yes. Well, I love this. There was a recent Google engineer that resigned, fired from Google, that claimed that the AI had now become had started thinking on its own. So he called it sentient. And my favorite buzzword, the guy said the computer said to him that the computer's greatest fear was being turned off. And at that point, the guy freaked out and thought, oh my God, this computer now has emotions and is thinking. And that, by the way, I think it's coming. I really do. I believe that. I believe AI. I don't think there's anything unique in humans that can't be programmed. It's just a matter of enough chips and enough enough computer power, and it'll emulate people. So yeah, it will create its own content, and even it's coming. Whoever harnesses that power is going to be the one who has the power. Yeah, somebody claimed copyright to the monkey selfie, but the court denied the claim. I agree. Look, I agree with the monkey. I'm very well aware of that. That's a different issue. Monkey taking a selfie is very different than all the human interaction that goes into creating artificial intelligence created content. Somebody's going to own it. It's not going to, if nothing else, it's the person that the primary driver of creating the content, or who distributes it. What is the best way to protect your script or movie treatment internationally? I'm a producer and content creator. We go to protect, we go to markets, blah, blah, blah. The best way is just, file in the copyright. Best is to file in the US Copyright Office, because that has you're protected by copyright worldwide under the Berne Convention without recording anywhere. Your best protection though is to record it in the US Copyright Office. You'll create a record that you own it. It'll create your chain. It'll start your chain of title, and it's clearly the best way to protect it. What type of pipeline can we build in development pre-production to find distribution for best alternative platform? You start the other way around. You figure out what's your platform. You start with where you want it to go, and then you work backwards. What do they need? What do they want? What will they pay? You go to them first. Let's do one more. And I'm a screenwriter. I have an idea for a trilogy. It can easily be transferable to various things. What do I recommend they create? What do I recommend they create? A video game first, building that community before translating it to other media. Yeah, look, if you've got an idea for a trilogy and script, I'd start small. I'd start, what can I do as a short? What can I do as a something, to get it going? Then can I make it a game? Can I make it into the metaverse? And then, build and build and build and build from there, and then work your way up. And then ultimately, if you want to turn it onto the ultimate goal, hope for most people, is a feature-length film to get on the Academy Award and then, Best Picture of the Year. This is how you start, and for many, this is where you'll end. I'm going to have clients that are going to have millions of dollars just creating stuff for the metaverse. So we're going to stop there. And with that, I'm going to tune out and thank you all for attending. And it's been my honor to be here. Thank you so much.